The small town whispered endlessly about the lonely widow who lived on the edge of the dusty road, always keeping to herself, always helping those who were invisible to others. But no one truly knew her story or the struggles she carried silently in her heart. One cold evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and shadows stretched across the old farmhouse, a millionaire cowboy returned unexpectedly and found something that froze him in place. There she was, quietly feeding his frail, elderly parents, her hands shaking from both age and effort, yet her eyes filled with warmth and compassion. Unaware she was being watched, he stood hidden, heart pounding, unable to speak, unable to move, realizing that this simple act of kindness held more courage and love than he had ever known. And in that moment, he knew that whatever happened next would not only surprise him, but change her life in ways she could never have imagined. The widow lived in a small, weathered cottage at the edge of town, where the wind howled through broken windows and the nights were colder than her thin blankets could protect her from. Every day was a battle, gathering firewood, cooking simple meals, and mending her torn clothes. Yet she never complained, never let her struggles show to the world. While the townspeople whispered about her loneliness and misfortune, none of them saw the quiet courage in her eyes or the gentle strength in her hands. Each morning, she would wake before dawn, prepare food for the neighbors in need, and tend to her small garden, her heart silently carrying both grief and hope. Though life had taken much from her, she gave everything she could to others, showing kindness where no one expected it. And in the shadows of her humble life, a spark of something extraordinary waited to be discovered, something that would soon turn her world upside down. The cowboy froze for a moment at the edge of the porch, his boots sinking slightly into the soft dirt, eyes wide as he watched. The widow carefully placing warm plates of food before his frail parents, his mind racing with disbelief and curiosity because he had never imagined that someone so humble and unknown to him could appear in his life with such courage and care. And yet there she was, completely absorbed in her task, speaking softly to his mother as if she had known her for years, smoothing his father's thinning hair with a tenderness that made his chest tighten and a strange ache rise in his heart. He felt a mixture of admiration and confusion because nothing in his life, not the grand houses, the wealth, or the attention of the town, had prepared him to witness such selfless devotion and sincerity. And he wanted to step forward and speak, but fear and uncertainty held him back, for he was used to commanding, to having control over every situation. And now he realized he was powerless to explain why seeing her like this stirred something deep within him, something unexpected and unfamiliar. While the widow remained unaware of his presence, moving with quiet determination and grace, ignoring the chill in the air and the creaking of the porch beneath her feet, each motion deliberate, each glance gentle, and the cowboy's mind began to replay every rumor he had ever heard about her, every whispered story of loneliness and struggle, but none of it matched what he was seeing now. And he realized that the truth was far more powerful than gossip, far more moving than anyone could have guessed. And as he watched her speak to his parents, he noticed the sparkle in her eyes, the way her lips curved into a soft smile as his mother reached for her hand in gratitude. And he felt a strange pang of guilt for having judged her so quickly, for having let assumptions cloud his view. And yet the emotion swirling inside him was more than regret. It was fascination, it was awe, and it was something he could not name, because she had touched a part of him that had long been buried under the weight of wealth, pride, and expectation. And in that silent, golden moment, with the sun casting long shadows across the yard and the scent of the evening air mingling with the warmth of the food, he understood that what he had stumbled upon was not merely an act of charity, but a revelation of character, a glimpse into the soul of a woman who had endured hardship without losing her kindness. And he realized that his next steps, however uncertain, would carry consequences that neither of them could ignore, for the balance of power, expectation, and fate had shifted irrevocably in that instant. And he knew that the life of the widow, so quiet and unassuming, and the life of his own family, so accustomed to comfort and routine, were now linked by a single, undeniable thread of humanity, courage, and compassion. And every heartbeat in his chest screamed that this encounter was not random, that destiny had chosen this night, this moment, this woman to change everything he thought he understood about life, love, and the unexpected ways in which hearts can connect when least anticipated. He wanted to confront her, but hesitated, every instinct in his body telling him to step forward and demand an explanation, while another part of him warned to stay hidden and observe, his heart racing and palms sweating as questions collided in his mind like storm clouds. Was she a thief daring to enter his property, a liar inventing stories to gain favor, or something far more unexpected that he could not yet comprehend? And as he watched her carefully place the plates of food before his aging parents, the widow moved with a quiet, almost sacred grace, unaware that her simple act of kindness was being witnessed by the richest man in town, her eyes soft with concern, her hands trembling slightly yet precise in every motion. Speaking gently to his father, who looked up with a tired smile, and to his mother, whose hands reached instinctively to hers as if recognizing a familiar warmth. And the cowboy felt an unfamiliar knot in his chest, a mixture of awe, suspicion, and something he could not name, for he had never seen anyone act with such selflessness without a thought of reward, and it made him question everything he believed about people, wealth, and the quiet truths hidden behind ordinary faces. And he realized that the rumors and whispers of the town were meaningless compared to the reality before him. The widow's courage and compassion cutting through the fear and pride that had always defined his life. And though he was tempted to call out, to interrupt and assert his authority, a deeper curiosity held him in place, urging him to understand her story, to witness her intentions fully, to see beyond appearances and judgment. And as the moments stretched, each tick of the clock heightening the suspense, he noticed the small details that revealed her humanity. The gentle tilt of her head as she listened, the way her eyes softened when his parents expressed gratitude, the subtle way she carried herself with dignity despite the hardships etched in the lines of her face. And he felt a growing respect that clashed with his initial suspicion, a silent acknowledgement that this woman, unknown and underestimated by everyone else, held a strength and morality that he could not ignore. And in the midst of this tension, he understood that whatever decision he made next would ripple far beyond this night, shaping both their futures in ways he could not yet predict, that the line between observer and participant had already blurred, and that the widow, with her humble courage and unwavering kindness, had already begun to rewrite the story of his life, forcing him to confront his own assumptions, his own heart, and the possibility that true wealth lay not in gold or property, but in the quiet, unnoticed acts of love and integrity that few were willing to see. And as he remained frozen on the threshold, hidden in shadow, the weight of realization settled in his chest, that this encounter, this single moment, would forever alter the course of their lives, binding them in an unspoken connection that neither time nor circumstance could easily undo, leaving him to wonder how a stranger's courage could awaken a depth of feeling he had never allowed himself to experience before, and how a simple act of feeding the hungry could carry more power than any fortune he had ever known. Instead of anger, the cowboy felt a strange and unexpected admiration rising within him, a warmth he had not anticipated as he watched the widow move with quiet determination and effortless care, her eyes soft with concern and her hands steady as she placed the food before his elderly parents. And he realized with a jolt that she was not performing this act for recognition, praise, or reward, but from a genuine place of compassion and selflessness, a realization that struck him harder than anything he had encountered in his life of wealth and influence. For no amount of money or status could teach a person the depth of empathy, the patience, and the courage that this woman carried in every gesture. And as she gently spoke to his mother, smoothing the lines of worry from her face, and offered a small smile to his father, encouraging him to eat, the cowboy felt the tightness in his chest loosen, a softness spreading through his heart that he had not known for years, an unfamiliar mixture of respect, gratitude, and awe that made him reconsider everything he had assumed about the people he thought he knew. He saw not a poor, struggling widow, but a person of immense dignity and inner strength, a woman who had faced countless hardships yet chose kindness over resentment, giving without hesitation, giving without expectation. And it struck him that her courage was far greater than the bravest acts he had witnessed in his life. And in that moment, standing silently at the edge of the yard, he felt an invisible thread connect him to her, a bond forged not by wealth, family ties, or convenience, but by something far more powerful. The recognition of genuine humanity, the understanding that true character is revealed in small, unnoticed acts, the kind of acts that leave the world subtly but irrevocably changed, and his mind raced with thoughts of how he could respond. How he could acknowledge her bravery without shattering the simplicity and dignity of what she had offered freely, for he knew that any abrupt action could disrupt the fragile balance of trust and humility she had maintained. And yet he felt compelled to act, to reach out, to ensure that her sacrifice and kindness would not go unnoticed or unappreciated. And as the last rays of sunlight faded, casting golden shadows over the worn porch, he realized that the widow had unwittingly taught him a lesson in courage, empathy, and selflessness that no amount of education or privilege could ever provide, that sometimes the greatest heroes are not those with power or fame, but those who quietly give their hearts to others despite their own struggles. And he understood that his life, his perspective, and the way he viewed the world had shifted irrevocably in these few fleeting moments. And he felt a resolve forming within him, a determination to honor her kindness, to protect her, and to ensure that the life she had lived in silence and struggle would now be touched by the recognition, support, and care that she so richly deserved. And in that shared silence, with the gentle evening breeze brushing past them and the scent of home-cooked food lingering in the air, he felt an unspoken promise forming, that whatever path lay ahead, her courage and generosity would not go unrewarded, and his admiration deepened into a quiet, steadfast respect that would guide his next actions and change both of their lives forever. Unable to ignore her courage and compassion any longer, the cowboy stepped forward cautiously, his boots crunching softly on the gravel as he approached the widow, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation, respect, and a strange vulnerability he had not experienced before. And she looked up suddenly, startled, her eyes wide and wary as she instinctively took a small step back, unsure of the intentions behind the presence of the wealthy man she had never met. Yet as he spoke in a calm, measured voice, his tone careful not to intimidate, she began to relax slightly, sensing sincerity behind his words. And though their conversation was awkward at first, filled with pauses and tentative glances, it quickly became honest and revealing as she shared the struggles she had faced alone, the nights she had spent worrying about how to feed herself and others, and the reasons she had quietly cared for his aging parents without asking for anything in return, her voice soft yet steady, carrying both pride and humility. And with each sentence, the cowboy felt his respect and curiosity grow, his initial astonishment transforming into genuine admiration and empathy. He realized that the woman before him was not only courageous but remarkably selfless, her life shaped by hardships that had hardened some, but had only refined her kindness and determination. And as she spoke, he noticed the subtle strength in her posture, the unwavering calm in her expression despite the vulnerability of sharing her truth, and he felt an unexpected urge to protect her, to ensure that her sacrifices were acknowledged and her dignity preserved. For in that moment, he understood that true bravery is often quiet, performed without fanfare or expectation, and that the value of a person is measured not by wealth or status, but by the depth of their compassion and integrity. And as the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long, warm shadows across the porch and highlighting the gentle lines of her face, he realized that this encounter was more than chance. It was destiny, a turning point that would reshape both their lives in ways neither could yet imagine. And he felt a resolve solidify within him to act with care, generosity, and respect, ensuring that the kindness she had shown would be reciprocated not with pity or charity, but with genuine friendship, support, and understanding. And as the conversation drew to a close, their initial awkwardness melted into mutual recognition of the extraordinary connection forming between them, a bond built not on words or appearances but on shared humanity, courage, and the quiet acknowledgement of each other's heart. And he knew that from this moment onward, neither of them would remain the same, for the widow's honesty had pierced the armor he had built around himself, and her selflessness had ignited a spark within him that promised to guide his actions with purpose, compassion, and a newfound respect for the strength that lay in unexpected places. forever altering the course of both their lives with a single, courageous conversation that bridged fear, admiration, and the possibility of a future neither had dared to hope for. The cowboy looked into her eyes, seeing the mixture of surprise, hesitation, and cautious hope reflected there, and he knew in that instant that mere words or gestures would not suffice to honor her courage and selflessness. So he took a steady breath and offered her more than she had ever imagined. A job that would respect her skills and dignity. A home where she could rest without fear of cold nights or empty cupboards. And the promise that she would never again face hunger, struggle, or the quiet despair that had shadowed her life for so long. And as he spoke, his voice calm but sincere, she blinked rapidly, the weight of disbelief and gratitude pressing against her chest, and tears threatened to spill because in that moment, for the first time in years, someone had seen her, truly seen her, not as a poor widow, not as a stranger, but as a person of immense value, deserving of respect, trust, and care. And the cowboy's presence became a quiet anchor, a reminder that human connection, courage, and kindness could alter the trajectory of a life, that destiny could arrive not with fanfare, but in the form of genuine understanding and generosity. And as she hesitated to respond, he stepped a little closer, offering friendship and protection without demanding anything in return, ensuring that the fragile dignity she carried was not compromised but strengthened. And he sensed that this was more than an act of charity. It was a second chance, a new chapter in a story that had been filled with struggle, solitude, and sacrifice. And as she finally nodded, unable to speak for the overwhelming tide of emotion, he felt a surge of resolve, knowing that his role was not only to provide comfort, but to honor her humanity, to safeguard her courage, and to witness her flourish. And in that quiet porch lit by the fading sunset, with shadows stretching long across the yard and the scent of home-cooked food lingering in the air, a transformation began, subtle yet profound, where fear and uncertainty gave way to hope, trust, and the first sparks of belonging. And the cowboy realized that life-changing decisions are rarely about wealth or material support alone. They are about seeing the worth in someone's heart, acknowledging their struggles, and choosing to stand beside them, to protect them, and to honor the silent battles they have fought with grace. And as she took tentative steps toward this new reality, her hands brushing against the warmth of his gesture, he felt the quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing that a single act, extended with care, trust, and empathy, could rewrite a life completely, that her path forward would no longer be shadowed by scarcity or doubt, but illuminated by respect, protection, and the knowledge that she was valued, cherished, and never alone again. And in that moment, the world outside the small cottage faded away, leaving only the shared understanding that courage and kindness, when recognized and nurtured, could create a future filled with security, dignity, and the profound promise of new beginnings, a promise neither wealth nor power could create without the human heart willing to give and protect freely. And that promise now rested squarely between them, binding their lives with unspoken trust, hope, and the certainty that life would never be the same again. From that day on, her life transformed completely. The quiet struggles, lonely nights, and endless sacrifices replaced by hope, security, and the warmth of being truly seen and valued. And as she moved through each day with a newfound confidence, she realized that her kindness, which once seemed invisible, had opened a door she never imagined, a door to dignity, trust, and belonging. And the cowboy watched silently, his heart swelling with respect and admiration, understanding that sometimes the smallest acts of love and courage can ripple into destinies far greater than anyone could foresee. And in the gentle smiles exchanged over meals, in the quiet conversations at sunset, in the laughter that now filled the once empty rooms, he saw the proof that nobility is not measured by wealth, power, or status, but by selfless acts, bravery of heart, and unwavering compassion. And in that shared life, both of them discovered that true transformation begins when courage meets kindness, forever rewriting what they believed was possible.